My story begins back in college, where I first crossed paths with Megan. Honestly, I never saw her as someone I'd end up with long-term. She was quiet, so quiet in fact she seemed to fade into the background. Insecure, shy, always keeping her head down. She was the kind of girl most guys overlooked. Truthfully, I didn't love her at first. My intentions were shallow. I was just chasing another notch on my belt. But something unexpected happened. Megan began to change. It started with little things. She joined the gym, started dressing differently, began visiting salons regularly. Before I knew it, she'd completely transformed herself. That once timid wallflower became this striking, confident woman. She turned heads everywhere she went. I'll admit it. I felt proud, like her transformation was somehow my accomplishment. My friends would joke that I'd locked her down early, back when she was harmless, and they'd whisper about the things I'd supposedly taught her, things you don't exactly see in polite society. But she wasn't just stunning. She was sweet and endlessly passionate. I realized pretty quickly that I had no desire to look elsewhere. She was everything I wanted. After we graduated, I proposed to her, and soon after, we welcomed our daughter into the world. Married life felt effortless. We trusted each other completely. I never once doubted her loyalty. Megan dedicated every moment to our family. She'd spend her days nurturing our daughter, filling the house with laughter and warmth, and when our child was at daycare, she'd pour herself into household tasks. She was amazing at it, honestly. While so many of our friends' marriages fell apart, we stayed solid. People would ask us how we made it work so well, but we had no grand advice. We simply loved each other and respected each other's space. Eventually, we bought a house and took on a mortgage. To help out financially, Megan found a job at a company that was almost entirely women. She'd often come home exhausted, venting about the backstabbing, gossip, and constant drama. I felt bad for her, so I encouraged her to take breaks. Sometimes I'd send her and our daughter on trips together, even if it left me feeling lonely for a few days. I figured she deserved it. With time, she stopped complaining about work. She seemed calmer, more at peace. Her office started holding parties before holidays, and the tension among her coworkers seemed to ease. One December, just before New Year's, she told me there was going to be a work party. I didn't think twice about it. She deserved to relax and enjoy herself. That evening, she dressed up in this daring little black dress, short enough that I actually raised an eyebrow. She just grinned and reminded me that I was the one who had picked it out for her when we were shopping. I couldn't deny it. She looked incredible. Her beauty had only grown over the years, and everywhere she went, eyes followed her. Since she worked with women, I wasn't worried about who'd be at the party. I kissed her goodbye and told her to have fun, but reminded her to be back by 10 p.m. She agreed, promising she'd be home by then. Still, I gave her a little leeway, told her she could stay out until 11 if she was enjoying herself. Once she left, I helped our daughter with her homework, glancing at the clock every now and then. At exactly 10, Megan called to check in. She said everything was going great, that they were having a blast. I was happy for her and reminded her about the time, but I wasn't worried. But then 11 came and went. No sign of her. That's when the unease kicked in. Megan had never done anything like this before. She was always punctual, always responsible. I called her phone over and over again. No answer. My worry quickly turned to frustration. Where was she? And with whom? After putting our daughter to bed, I sat in the dark, staring at my phone, unable to sleep, my mind racing with awful scenarios. Finally, around 2 a.m., my phone lit up. It was Megan, slurring her words, scolding me for blowing up her phone. She was drunk. Wasted, actually. And in the background, I clearly heard men's voices. My stomach turned. I demanded she come home immediately. She just laughed, a high, careless giggle that sent rage pulsing through me. I yelled so loudly I accidentally woke up our daughter. I had no choice but to hang up and wait, hoping she'd come back soon. Waited. And waited. At 5 a.m. she called again, saying she was getting a cab. I'd been sitting by the window for hours by then. Half an hour later, I saw her step out of an expensive car. Definitely not a cab. I knew immediately it belonged to some man she'd been with. She could barely walk, stumbling up the steps, completely out of it. When I opened the door, my heart dropped. She looked ruined. Her hair was a tangled mess, her stockings were torn, and her makeup was smeared. She looked like she'd been used, and not gently. I couldn't stop myself. I shoved her back a little in shock and anger, and that's when I saw it. Hickey. Bright bold right on her neck. I demanded answers, but she was too drunk to speak coherently. All I got from her was a slurred, "I was just having fun." Fun. That's what she called it. By then, our daughter had woken up again, frightened by the noise. I wouldn't let her near Megan. I didn't want her seeing her mother like that. Megan didn't even notice our daughter standing nearby. She just stumbled toward the bathroom, locked herself inside, and passed out. She stayed asleep the entire next day while I sat alone, spiraling. I blamed myself at first. I was the one who'd encouraged her to enjoy herself. Desperate for clarity, I called my mother, my go-to for advice. She always loved Megan, always called her the perfect wife. But when I told her what happened, even she was stunned. Her advice was simple and firm. Divorce her. Immediately. That same afternoon, I went to the courthouse and started filing the paperwork. When I returned home, Megan had finally woken up. She looked wrecked, ashamed, and desperate. I asked her one simple question. "Did you cheat?" She nodded. Then she broke down, dropping to her knees, begging for forgiveness, sobbing uncontrollably. But it didn't matter. In that moment, I realized I no longer saw her as my wife. She was just a stranger. She knew how I felt about cheating. She crossed that line anyway. I felt nothing but disgust. I wouldn't listen to her excuses. The biggest shock of all came later. Our daughter, just 10 years old, told me she wanted to live with me after the divorce. She'd seen enough and made up her mind. I was relieved. I didn't want her growing up around Megan after what had happened. Soon after, I packed up and moved to another city with my daughter. We settled into a new home. She adapted fast, made friends easily, and honestly, she didn't seem to miss the old town at all. As for Megan, from what little I hear, she's still drifting from man to man, chasing her next adventure like nothing ever happened. That was the path she chose. And me. I've moved on. I'm focused on raising my daughter and building a new life. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, feel free to share it. Take care of yourself and your heart.